Welcome to the Perinatal Wellbeing Podcast. I'm Christine, your host and certified perinatal mental health professional. This podcast is all about authentic conversations. We want to open up the discussions around perinatal health and well-being, from mood and anxiety disorders to breastfeeding to grief and loss in the perinatal period, and everything in between. While this is not therapy or medical advice, it is the place where we are going to continue to open up the discussion around all things perinatal mental, physical, emotional, and sexual health to help reduce stigma and break down these barriers to support. I acknowledge that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which Perinatal Wellbeing Ontario is located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. I am proud to acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory now called Ontario. I acknowledge that I am a settler on these lands, and it is on these ancestral and treaty lands that I live, learn, and work. Hello, and welcome to Perinatal Wellbeing, episode number 18. My guest today is Naomi from Queer Nest Club. Naomi uses she and they pronouns and is founder and head doula of Queer Nest, where she coaches and supports queer and gender-non-conforming folks and entrepreneurs through one of their biggest life transitions, becoming a parent. On today's episode, Naomi and I talk about how we can prepare for the transition to parenthood, including building our community of supports, asking for help, and being authentic. We also touched on some really important concepts, such as the impact of hetero-normative stereotypes on queer and non-binary parents, exploring our own values, and planning for the postpartum period. You can find Naomi on Instagram at myqueernest and at Queer Nest Club. Her company website is queernest.co, and the Queer Nest Club website is queernestclub.com. Hi, Naomi. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hello, Christine. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. We connected on Instagram and I've just seen the work that you're doing. And I love the work that you're doing. And so I wanted to connect with you about that a bit, but we share this mutual desire to help people, to support people in that transition to parenthood and really looking past the birth plan, so to speak, or how we're welcoming our babies into our families and looking beyond that to the postpartum period, trying to plan for that as best as we can, and how we can support people in that transition. And I do that, through my clinical practice as a therapist, and you do that in your business. So tell us about that, about how you support people doing that.
Yeah. So thank you. I think we're realizing as a society, just to say this, we're realizing that we matter. It's not just about keeping the baby alive. I think we're starting to understand and love ourselves and give ourselves some priority as well. And I am so here for that. And that's one of my biggest missions and misconceptions. People think that I just work with babies. And I'm like, actually, no, I mostly work with parents. So I'm the founder of Queer Nest. And the way I work with people is through one-on-one coaching. And I definitely emphasize starting that coaching journey before birth. So in late second trimester, even when anytime in the second trimester, third trimester, when people feel like they want to start thinking about what life is going to look like after birth, because the offerings out there, we haven't caught up with what people really need, which is a lot of information, education, empowerment, advocacy, preparation for life with this new baby. It's such a massive transition, such a huge life phase, and we need to do better for our people by helping them prepare for it.
And I'm wondering, because this theme has come up for me a lot, obviously throughout my life, but in this perinatal work is how gender stereotypes,
Mm.
I think, have a massive influence on us.
Yes. Yes.
If we identify as a woman, you know, those expectations on us of what it means to be a woman and a parent. If you identify as mom, what does that mean? And how that can influence us of this. I talked about it in last week's episode with Kelly of that mom is martyr syndrome, how
Mhm.
kind of like giving up our life, so to speak, to become a
Mhm.
parent. And that doesn't have to just be in the mom kind of realm, but like you talked about, of there can be, we can thrive after having kids. We can still live our best life. It doesn't mean that we have to shut the door on our own wants, desires,
Mhm.
career ambitions, all the things.
Yeah.
It might be harder to like have those all line up at the same time, but still having those in the forefront and not just, I'm just a parent and I'm just
Mhm.
going to like give my life to my kid.
Yes. And another thing I want to touch really quick on that's so interesting about gender norms really quick is like we you mentioned all the gender norms of what motherhood looks like, what it's like to be a mom, a woman, a female. But what about our queer community who is bombarded with these messages and is not shown an openness and a conversation and a freedom to explore what parenthood looks like for them, right? Like that, I've spoken to so many queer folks who like through the journey expected to like become more feminine, to like fit into what we admire as like the quintessential pregnant goddess. There's people who, like myself, it's this uncomfortable tension of like what society is telling you and what you want, and when they don't align, you feel like there's something wrong with you, right? That's what it is to be pregnant, to be a parent in the heteronormative, cis-normative, very hyper feminine birth world. And so that's really important to say first and foremost. And then I also just wanted to say, like, I love, and one of the pillars of my brand is abundance. So I approach everything with an abundance mindset, and that's what I want for my clients as well. So when you talked about all the different identities, all the different pieces that come together for people to create their identity and who they are, I want us to start thinking big. I want us to start giving ourselves permission to explore, to play, to release the pressure and scarcity and comparison game that exists, that really keeps us in scarcity and lack mode and thinking like, this isn't for me, or I can't do this, I'm not a good parent. There's so many thoughts that come in that is a product of societal messaging, a product of like what we're being bombarded with. And so I want our listeners right now to just take a deep breath, like release all of that and say like, I am an abundant being and I deserve to be exactly the parent and human being that I want to be on this earth. And my favorite thing to say is like, you can have it all, you just can't do it all. So
Right.
I love that. I don't know what you think
Love
about
it.
that. I'd love to know what you think about that kind of sentiment.
I absolutely love that, because I agree, like this becoming a parent and thinking, oh, I have to sacrifice what I want in life for my
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't align with my internal values, my own
Mm-hmm.
values. And then there was that feeling of like, oh, maybe I'm not a good parent
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to sacrifice all of me
Yeah.
for my children. And I also don't feel like I'm the best version of me if I sacrifice myself for them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why do all these other parents do it? Right.
Yeah.
And the comparison comes in, and social
Yeah.
media is,
Yep.
we could talk about that for 3 hours. Um, it's
Yes.
like it can be so helpful and powerful in a good way, and then so damaging in others.
Yes.
Those comparisons come, well, that parent looks like
Mm-hmm.
they've got it all together and
Mm-hmm.
I'm floundering over here. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, yes, like, why can't we have it all? And acknowledging we can't do it all at the same time,
Yeah.
I think is so important and helpful, because it doesn't mean you can't achieve your goals. It means that you only have two hands. You
Yeah.
only have, so much time in a day. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's only
Mm-hmm.
so many hours in your work day. There's only so much time for the family.
Yeah.
It has to, like, somehow work out
Yeah.
without putting, I think, too much pressure, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Like, the reason why I say you can have it all, but you don't have to do it all, is because of that exact thing of, yeah, we see other parents on social media and we think that they're doing it all because we've been taught that we should do it all, that we should be able to parent and manage the household and do all the things. And so that's what we think. That's our programming. That's our paradigm. We've been handed that down from generations, especially those who kind of take on the role of mother or mom. That's been the messaging, right? So, like, in reality, in order to have your dreams and like your identities and all that, the reality is that you need support. You need a team. You need help. You need more hands. You need the support. And so the moms and the parents that we're looking at on social media, me being one of them, I have help. I don't do all the things. I will never even say, or like, I don't know. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I will never
Put it out there.
yeah, that I'm doing all the things, because it's not possible. And I want us to release that idea that we have to do it all. It's so pervasive, it's so heavy, and we need to start talking more and like emphasizing the immense power that comes from delegation, asking for help. Like, it's so powerful to step into that and start being like this badass parent who honors their boundaries, honors the fact that they have two hands, one heart, one mind, one amount of time in a day. And we need to just honor ourselves and honor that and bring in people to help and support us.
Absolutely. Because I try to think too, if I'm doing that for me, then I'm also modeling that for my children,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of asking for help, right? That's a skill, that's a life skill
Yeah.
that a lot of us don't learn. And again, I think through socialization that,
Mm-hmm.
some of us don't learn it more than others
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
you should do it all by yourself and you
Yeah.
don't need to ask for help. And that's so damaging and so not realistic.
Yeah.
And then
Or if I can squeeze in there
yeah,
for a second, some of us, like, we almost wear it as a badge of honor sometimes,
yes,
right? This like, oh, I'm not good at asking for help. I'm
yeah,
this like, I can do it on my own. It's like, let's ditch that whole thing, right? Like, let's stop wearing not being able to ask for help or not being good at it. Let's
yeah.
stop wearing that as a badge of honor, and let's start wearing the opposite as a badge of honor of, I am a badass delegator. I love asking for help.
Yeah, exactly. So then that leaves you with the energy and
Mm-hmm.
the time
Yeah.
to focus on the things that you are passionate about, that
Yes.
do, quote unquote, fill your bucket, for
Yeah.
lack of a better cliche, but like,
Mhm. Yeah.
it does give you that chance to, like, mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, physically be able to focus on those things that
Yeah.
can help lead to that feeling of abundance, that
Yes.
feeling of joy in your life, those, having more of those moments that do help us in those tough times of parenting when, whew, am
Yeah.
I going to make it through this? Like,
Yeah.
those moments are so important. And if we're never asking for help, and what I say, and I love, let's drop this badge of honor that, oh, I'm not good at asking for help. What I say to people who say that to me, like, for example, in therapy, I'm like, it's a skill. And we
Yes.
all have the ability to learn a new skill.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So, yeah. So it's definitely something that we need to, we literally need to learn how to do it. So a lot of people that I've worked with, and myself included, because I had to relearn all of this myself as well. Obviously, I was socialized very differently, but you almost have to put one baby step in front of the other and ask for the help before you even know what to do with it. So a lot of people stop themselves from asking for the help because, oh, I don't even know what I'll do with that time anyway. Like, let's be realistic. I'll just like spend it scrolling on Instagram. Or do I really need to like go out and do my own thing? Like, I'll be fine. It's fine. So I think asking for it before, and then once you start practicing and once you start actually experiencing that spaciousness that you get from asking for help, from delegating, like, you'll be amazed at how your brain and your body start to remember and to discover who the F you are, right?
Totally. And I also like to recommend people start small. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where does it feel safe to ask for help, or like
Mm-hmm.
not too overwhelming? Like, I'm not going to ask my partner to be with the kids for a whole weekend and I'm going to go away or something like that. Right. But like, where can I start small? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out for an hour. And yeah, maybe I'm going to sit in the car and scroll Instagram. But like, the point is I'm not with my children.
Yeah. Space.
Yeah,
Creating space for
absolutely.
yourself and not putting the pressure that if you are creating the space, you have to maximize every single minute.
Yes. Like, you have to perform.
Yeah.
Right. Can we also normalize rest?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I can ask for help to be able to rest.
Yes.
I can delegate tasks to rest.
Yes.
And that energizes me. That
Yeah.
gives me the time to like maybe read a book or something, or like
Yeah.
do something that fuels me and like, allows me to connect to myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's okay too. We don't have to delegate and ask for help just to be able to perform
Yes. And be productive.
and be
Absolutely.
productive.
It's
Yeah.
this is really deep programming here. Like this we live in a society that like reveres productivity, and this is radical. This is a movement that's starting to happen, but it is really hard to like reprogram these scripts that we have for ourselves of of just being more communal beings, asking for the help from our community, like leaning on each other. It's such like a new concept again. Like, a lot of us have lost this as we've been taught about nuclear families and everyone living in their household in like silos, and the like reduced pay and respect for the most traditionally deemed like feminine professions, or like all of the caring professions, because they've been so undervalued. We have lost touch with how powerful they really can be for us. And so now we're starting to remember, we're starting to learn like the importance, the power of having a doula, right? For example, this is just one example: in birth, in prenatal preparations, in the postpartum, having that person there to help you learn how to ask for help you navigate yourself and your changing identity in this process, right? This is like, it's powerful stuff, but we're just trying to educate the public on why we're needed, why this is so powerful, what we're here trying to do, because we're witches, right? It's like sorcery still.
Right. Right. Which is ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely ridiculous. It's again this badge of honor that comes up of like, I did it alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
This hyper independence, which I think
Mm-hmm.
also can come back to capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
In this Western society where everyone for themselves,
Yeah.
fight to get to the top, fight to make the most money, fight
Yeah.
to be successful instead of
Yeah.
like, well, can't we all just support each other?
Yeah. Yeah.
And can't, like you said, can't we continue to lean on that wisdom? There's so much wisdom to be had in
Yes.
our experiences, in our ancestors, in like all of these beautiful
Mm-hmm.
ways of being in community
Yes.
that I think have been lost. I think
Yeah.
mainly through capitalism and
Yeah.
white patriarchy.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. And now we're in a mode of like that relearning, that
Yeah,
like awakening
yeah,
to taking matters into our own hands, thinking about, our journey and giving ourselves some of that power back to think about and plan for and decide what we want our journey to look like, what we want, right? What we envision, how we can make that happen. Oh, I
I
just love
know.
it. I love it.
Yeah, right.
It's so powerful.
I know. And I think you're right. Like, I think it feels like there's a bit of a shift
Mm-hmm.
of, okay, how do we come into our own parenting, discovering our own parenting parts within our internal system? What are our values that
Mm-hmm.
are, separate from our family of origin
Yep.
and are similar to our family of origin? Which ones do we want to take with us? Which ones
Yep.
do we want to leave behind?
Yep.
Which ones, if we're partnered, then
Mm-hmm.
which ones become our values within our partnership?
Mm-hmm.
And then which ones do we want to bring into parenting?
Yeah.
Right. And how do we parent in alignment with those values and like live our lives as parents and people
Yeah.
in alignment with those values? But then I get stuck, like you said, on this, we have to have more discussions. And I think these discussions are so important.
Yeah.
But what worries me is like, I'm not sure if outside of our realm of perinatal, well-being, for example, and like birth workers and mental health therapists in the perinatal space, are people talking about this enough?
Mm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that this is where we're at. This is where
Yeah.
we're at right now, where it starts with us professionals talking about this, advocating for this. We have our client base. It may be small right now, but that's where we're at. And we're starting to see other people in the public start to advocate for like what their experience was. They're starting to share that with their communities. There's starting to be this gradual learning and acceptance of these ideas, these notions. And that's why I do what I do, because like it's one thing to talk about it, right? It's a whole nother thing to invite people in and say, I'm going to help you through this, right? Like this is what we need right now, is we need not only to talk about it with people, we need to then say, and this is how I can help you. This is how you're going to do this with help. Because in any other like time in your life, you have this big thing going on. What do? We look for a mentor. We look for a coach. We look for someone who has done it before us, or who has the expertise, has the knowledge. So we need to bring that to birth as well. I mean, people have been doing it forever. I'm not going to say that it hasn't been done. We just need to do more and more of that. Really like make it normalized, not shameful, because there's still shame associated with like growing your team. To become a parent, you like literally need a team. but there's still, like we said earlier, this like shame that people feel that they should be able to do it on their own. And we're seeing that the rates of perinatal mental health disorders are getting higher. So clearly what we have been taught, what we thought, was good to kind of do it ourselves, it's not translating into positive mental health. So we need to change our tactic, right? We need to try the communal thing, see how that feels. And I think we'll see a reflection in that in the perinatal mental health rates.
Absolutely, because the pandemic has highlighted that to,
yes,
I mean, I think an extreme amount, right? Like we're looking at now, like 1 in 3 parents experiencing a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. That's a lot of people. And that's 1 in 3 of people that are reporting.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Imagine the people that are not reporting. And I think every new parent has a level of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
That's totally typical. Of course, we need to, be on high alert.
Protect our babies.
Protect our babies. Yeah, no, scan the environment for danger, right? Totally typical. But I think definitely in this pandemic time, having a child, bringing a child into the world, welcoming a baby into your family, like in a pandemic is like next level.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're not meant to do it alone, even without a pandemic.
Right. Again, like we just moved away from that, right? Like, I have some clients who their families are, not originally from Canada. And, this one client, her mom was like, why are you struggling? Like, what's happening? What's going on? She's like, Mom, when back home, you had someone who cooked, someone who cleaned, someone who took care of the baby, someone who did all the things and brought you the baby to feed the baby, and then you could sleep.
Yeah.
He said, now I don't have any of that, and I have no one because it's middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I really have no one. So of course I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're wired for connections as human beings. But again, I think that capitalism, that drive for more money, work hard, I don't know. I really think it has a big influence on us, just like you said, becoming these silos, these nuclear families, like all that stuff. And I think it's had detrimental effect on us.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of amazing initiatives too of like how and this the pandemic spurred this on, which was like, how can we make support more readily available to people without them even having to leave their house? Because that's really important, obviously, in the pandemic, to avoid getting sick, but also like accessibility wise, when you're a new parent, the ability to locate these services, go in person, lug your baby or babies to these appointments, it was not working very well, I don't think. Like, so also bringing in that virtual support to meet people where they're at, so that people could literally just turn on their phone, jump into a chat, even if they have their robe on, or if they're chest feeding or whatever mode they're in, they can access the supports. And I think I've been so honored to like be a part of that. And it's part of what I needed and what I saw was needed, because I'm a pandemic parent. Not many people maybe don't realize this about me.
Yeah.
But I had my baby right before the pandemic started. So I got lucky actually that I was able to have my postpartum doula in the beginning. But then our it stopped very abruptly when the pandemic set in and everything shut down. But and then I started getting back to work myself and putting the pieces together, and we talk about identity shift, and it's a lot to navigate, in the beginning. But I think we start to realize when we have a baby is that, oh, like I have another human to think about and that I want to inspire, right? Like this is one of the powerful parts of becoming a parent, is like what is our legacy? How do we want to inspire our kids on a daily basis too? And that's one of the most like powerful questions behind being a parent. And that can look like gender creative parenting, which I've been really enjoying. And just figuring out my own identity pieces, coming out more publicly as queer, keeping my body hair. That's been like a big one. I literally the last time I shaved my legs was for the birth. I swear. And then literally after my daughter was born, I was like, oh my God, I don't want her to internalize this whole disgusting like ideal in society where, if you identify as a woman or female or whatever, that you need to have hairless legs and body. I don't want that for her. I want her to be free. So I need to model that. I need to, like, it's really important to me that I am authentic to her and I live in integrity with what I want to teach her and model that for her as well. So that it's not like I tell you, but I don't do it myself kind of situation.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just want people to just give themselves permission for that as well.
Right. And I think that speaks to, like, as a parent, as, in the work that we do, especially because we do this like work where we're like interacting, right, with humans on this like human real level, is like,
yes,
we have to know ourselves.
Yes.
Like, what are my values?
Yeah.
Right. And then live in alignment with those values to be able to model that behavior for our kids.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, not like do as I say, not as I do. Right. Like that's not helpful. And, to be able to also like model that for the people we work with.
Yeah.
I think it's so important and does keep us authentic. And also to be able to say, like, when we've made a mistake or when we don't know something about ourselves and we're trying to figure that out. And I think we're always like evolving and changing. But being able to model that for our kids, of like being open to ourselves, being open to like, oh, I just realized, I internalized this message from childhood and I was still really holding on to that one, okay, now I'm going to work on that one and try to release it, type of thing. Right.
Oh my gosh. And we never know who's watching as well. Now in the digital age, we have so much more ability to inspire with our own authenticity, our own identity, and like integrity and identity. And it's happened to me where, still going on the body hair theme, where even like just out in public, when I think about who might be watching, like a young girl who is hairy, but, has started to shave or whatever, and sees me and goes, whoa, this is possible. Like,
yes.
I never had that. I never saw any like woman identifying person having like leg hair. Just wasn't a thing. So I thought, like, wow, even just I can put myself in like some discomfort against societal norms if it means that someone can feel some permission to be themselves.
Absolutely.
And that came from becoming a parent. Like, how fucking cool is that?
It is so cool. And I think can be scary for people.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. So scary.
Yeah. Because I think, I love how, it sounds like you come to parenting with this, like, it's like an opportunity. It's like, it's exciting. It's this, we can inspire our kids. We can teach our kids, model, and like learn who we are in context of being a parent and taking care of this other, human. And it can be scary to like break free, so to speak, from those societal expectations, from those societal norms, depending on how our parents view those things, see those things, accept us or don't accept us, like all of those things have big impacts on us. And so it can be scary and sometimes keep us in those boxes and keep us from living our authentic lives. And what I'm finding interesting in this work, and I think too, especially like, honestly, like from podcasting, is like connecting with people on this real level. Like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. But those people that I connect with were really connecting genuinely.
Yeah.
Right. I have different parts of me that sometimes I've tried to mask for years and years and years. I don't mask them anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
This is me.
Yeah.
I fuck up all the time.
Yeah.
I embarrass myself all the time. I
Yeah.
talk too much. I'm too loud. I'm too this or that.
Oh my
Whatever.
God. Yeah.
It's who I am now. And
Yeah.
I've always been that person.
Yeah.
However, I'm not
Yeah.
masking that anymore.
Yeah, same here. I love that. That's so powerful. Oh my God. It's like, and again, circling back to, but how did we get to this place? Because I'm sure listeners are thinking like, okay, that's all great. That's fine and dandy. Y'all are like authentic and have, realized your inner truth. How the hell do I do that? It all comes back to who you have around you supporting you. I think that's like such a big one, because again, if you are in like survival mode, if you're trying to juggle 30 balls, you're in survival mode, your brain is not going to even be thinking about, oh, how do I be my most authentic self today? Like, no, that's not what your brain's going to be thinking about. It's going to be thinking about, how the hell do I not drop these balls that I'm trying to juggle and like not just lose my entire shit and like, collapse? I don't know. Right. So I think it's so important to like advocate for yourself, ask for help, create your supportive community, the people who will hold you and cheer you on and support you and give you the rest and recovery and all the support you need. Prepare, right? Like, think about how you'll get your needs met and your wants met in advance, so that as things come up, life with a new baby is busy. And so if you haven't kind of prepared and given your brain a chance to like tackle some of these problems in advance, it's exhausting to try and like, solve problems and come up with solutions and all this thing in the moment when you're, encountering it for the first time.
Absolutely. And we know even, in that survival mode, our prefrontal cortex is shut down anyway. So like,
right.
Even if you could try as hard as you want, problem solving is not online. So don't even think about it. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think like kind of bringing that back around to the work that you do. And we talked about how like, I'm such a firm believer in this too, is then having these discussions. I mean, I don't know about you, but not a lot of people have these discussions before even thinking about family planning. Let's just say you come into a partnership, right? And having these discussions of like, well, I mean, of course, there's a lot of things we don't know until we actually become a parent. And then we're like, oh shit, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, there's so much,
but like, can we normalize like having these conversations before we even come to the subject of family planning, right? Of like, what kind of parent do you want to be? Or like, what kind of parent were your parents? Or like, what are the things you want to take with you from your childhood? What are the things you don't want to take with you?
Yeah.
Are our values aligned? Are we on the same page? Because I see from my perspective as a therapist that people become parents and all of a sudden their partner and them are not on the same page.
Right. Which is so hard. So hard. Right.
So hard, right? Like being, total opposite ends of the spectrum, maybe of values and the way we want to parent and how we want to show up for kids, or, and then what do you do? Like, that's really hard to work on and to like work through in that like postnatal phase and when they're little, right?
Yeah. When there's already so much that you're trying to navigate and balance, and then trying to tackle those issues, and it can kind of spur on more more arguments than people want to have, right? Because then every decision or everything becomes like an argument about it, right? So I also counsel my clients to have these discussions and ask these questions prenatally as well, right? Because of course, before people become parents, I don't really have access to people at that stage, right? I start to work with people more in pregnancy and in like the expectant phase. But it's absolutely something that is so important to tackle beforehand, is like talking with your partner, talking about values, talking about all the things you just highlighted, and like hashing out, talking, discussing when you have your prefrontal cortex available to you, like you said, right? Like you have some brain power to sit down together. You don't have a baby to feed and like worry about and all those things before they come, sitting down and spending some time together. And it's actually so bonding and such an amazing experience to like get to know your partner better and, you know, find out what their love language is too. So it's not just about, okay, what do we disagree on? It's also about like, how can I support you? How would you love to be like appreciated once baby's here? What feels good to you? What can I do? What can you do for like just these amazing conversations? It's so powerful.
Absolutely. And I think like even talking about the things of like, okay, what are we both like when we don't have sleep?
Yes.
You know, what are we like when we're experiencing pain? For example, if
Yes.
someone has birthed, right?
Yeah.
And let's say if afterwards, you know, they are experiencing a lot of pain post-delivery, like what am I usually like with high levels of pain?
Yeah.
You know, or like,
Or when I'm hungry.
yeah,
That's a big
yes,
one.
yes, when I'm hungry or like, you know, just anxious, right? Like we get, of course, like when we get caught up in the like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to figure out how to feed this baby. I'm trying to figure out like, you know, when are they tired? When am I tired? How do I put them to sleep? How do I change a diaper? Like, you know, all the things, right? And like, that's not a great time. It's when we're like super stressed and anxious to be able to figure out these things. So like you said, if you have those discussions beforehand, you know, and being open to that, like, hey, you know, partner, if you see me like going off the rails, can you like try to like rein me in?
Yeah. Or just like give me a big hug.
Yes.
Right? Like sometimes we forget that all we need is to feel seen and held and heard and like loved in a moment, right? Because we just had a baby, but the saying goes, I don't know who said this, but like the parent has also been birthed, right? Like we are brand new parents. Even if even if this is not your first baby, you're becoming a parent again for a new human in a new time. And there's so much change that sometimes we just need to be held. It's just like seen and held and just and heard and nurtured, like they say, kind of mother the mother. It's very gendered, but that kind of idea of like sometimes as a new parent, you need to be held as if you're a child yourself.
Absolutely. Even if, because like I said, right, like when we talk about, okay, what are my values or what kind of parent do I want to be? Like I think it's important to have those discussions. And then also there's a big chunk of that where like, we're just not going to know until we get into that role. But also kind of having this mutual agreement of like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing, but we're going to figure it out together.
Yeah.
Like we're in a partnership for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. Of like being able to lean on each other and support each other. And like maybe one day one person is like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is so scary. And the other person like, it's okay. Like, we got this. Like,
Yeah.
let me
We
take
can
it easy.
complement each other, right?
Yes. And maybe the next day it's opposite.
Yeah.
The other one's flipping out and you're calm and you're like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can do this. You know?
Yeah.
And so being able, I think, to just set yourselves up to say like, okay, we're gonna be there for each other together. And like, it's okay if we highlight to each other that like something's going on or we're not coping or, you know, again, making that agreement, I think ahead of time of like, don't take offense.
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like if your partner is going to highlight something to you, I think that can be really important. And
Yeah.
then let's not forget to like single parents by choice or single parents like by circumstance where it happens,
Yeah.
that building your village, right? Again, it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be about the partner, right? But
Yeah.
like who is around you that supports and loves you and cares for you and can hug you and hold
Yes.
you and like hold that space for you, I think is so important.
Yes. I have some thoughts. I definitely have some thoughts.
Please.
So yes, and right. So for partnerships, what we've started to do as a society is the silo effect, right? So we depend on our partner for a lot, and we like expect them to like complete us and be our other half. And
Right.
like sometimes you can talk to each other and like show your soul and bare your soul and all this, but also sometimes the other partner won't have the space or capacity to be that person. And I think we need to normalize that. And that's again why the support and the community is so important. And having a doula or having a therapist, having other support, friends, whatever it looks like for you, people who are non-judgmental, who will hold you just like the way you need to be held and heard, is so important, not just for single parents, but for everyone, right? And like everyone needs this. Everyone needs this, because that's the trap, is that we think that our partners are everything. And then sometimes both partners are struggling at the same time, or one just doesn't have the capacity. And I remember this happening to me post birth. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but I remember saying to my partner, like, I love you, but I don't have the capacity right now to hold this for you and to hold you through this right now. I think it would really, really benefit you if you reached out to your friend or your mom or someone that you trust, that you can talk through this with, right?
Right.
So I need to say that for our listeners.
I love it. Thank you, Naomi, for saying that, because I think that is so important, because that again speaks to we're not meant to parent in isolation.
Yeah.
We're not meant to just parent in our four walls,
Yeah.
with just us, right? It like
Yeah.
does take that community, of support and at all different phases, right?
Yeah.
And that can look different for everyone at different phases. And yeah, like, I went through postpartum anxiety and depression, and
Mm.
I can hold anything for my
Mm-hmm.
partner. There was absolutely no way. And then,
Yeah.
of course, like we see then the partners that are struggling to
Yeah.
see their partner struggling,
Right.
then they're struggling with their own stuff. And like,
Yeah.
who do I turn to? Because my partner, who's like my whole world, quote unquote,
Yes. Yeah.
I can't talk to them.
Yeah. And
Right.
and this idea of them, like the partner having to hold everything,
Yes. Yeah.
that is like, that's really not how it's meant to be. And I see a lot of partners like really struggling with that kind of feeling, that overwhelm of like, I have to hold everything together.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And that's why I'm here, is like to just make this transition better for people, right? Because it's a complex transition. It's this like, it's one of the biggest milestones of life, is like becoming a parent. And then yeah, down the line you feel more confident, you feel like you've kind of got a hang of it. But in that very tender time in the beginning, it's like, what the actual heck what is this? I don't even recognize myself right now. That's like putting pieces together, and this like real I want to say blossoming,
Like in blossoming into this parent role. And I was kind of chuckling because, it in that beginning, that newborn phase, like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I remember even like we planned for our kids, and
mm-hmm.
we were lucky in that sense, and wanted to have a baby and gave birth, and then I was like, oh fuck. What have we done?
Yes, yes, yes.
We made a
Yeah.
mistake. Like,
I'm laughing, but
yes,
it's real. In the moment, it
it's
is real, and
totally,
I wanna honor that. But
no, totally.
I'm
But
laughing also because I've literally thought the same things. It's a very hard thought process to be in, a very scary place to be in, but so common.
yeah, I was like, can we just put him back for like 2 weeks? Like, just give me like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to change diapers when he was in the womb. I didn't have to
Yeah.
try to nurse him or,
Yeah.
figure that out. I,
Yeah.
I could just do what I wanted.
Hmm.
I was still in there, even though it was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
We have to learn how to literally regulate and ourselves when they cry, right? Because that's a whole new experience when you have a baby that is vocally expressing their needs.
right.
That's one of the biggest stress factors for a lot of parents is like, my baby cries and I lose it. Like, I don't know what to do. I freak out. I like, and so that's a whole thing to navigate too, right? We talk about feeding, we talk about sleep, but also just this like very real, very visceral reaction that so many parents experience, but we don't talk about because we feel like we're supposed to be these idyllic parents that just dote on their children and love them even when they're puking on you and screaming. Like,
Yes.
we have to learn this. Like, how the heck?
Right. And like, let's be real. I didn't love when my babies puked all over me.
Yeah. But then we think, oh, am I a bad parent for thinking this? Am I a bad parent for feeling like that I'm not like so enamored with my baby in this moment?
Right. Loving every second. Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't love the work of
Yeah.
parenthood,
Yeah.
and when people ask you like, oh, isn't having kids the best thing you've ever done?
Mm-hmm.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Is it the best? I don't know. And
I'll get back to you when when I'm on my deathbed. I'll get back to you and I will tell
I'll
you
let you know.
what the best thing in my life was.
Yeah.
But for right now, this is what we're doing and we're figuring it out, and like full permission to just get help. Get help, because it's a hard ass time of life. There's so many challenges. There's so much new stimuli, new things to deal with. And this is why I keep coming back to get the help, get an expert, get the support, all the things. Tap into that abundance mindset and say, what do I need and want right now? What will make this easier for me? And go from there.
Absolutely. And I think too, like that, I think it's important to remember we are not born knowing how to parent.
Correct.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a fallacy. This is
Mhm.
something that this is a social construct that we've been
Yes.
told
Yeah.
that we know what to do. Like, before you change a diaper, you don't know how to change a diaper.
Correct. Yeah. It's learning. It's learning 100%. Yeah.
And let's normalize that again by asking for help, by seeking support from those people. And I think this is what I say to people, is like, when you are looking for that support as outside of yourself as well, is these people that you're aligning with, do they align with your values?
Yes. Yeah.
And like, this is a whole other subject, but there's some hot topic, hot button issues, I think, in that first year of parenting, where, you can get involved with people or get support from people that don't have the same values as you.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to integrate this information in how you're caring for your child, and it's not going well for you, and it's causing more stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And taking everything with a grain of salt. Like, I can read this book or get this information from this person I trust, and then how does it work for my family, and for me, and for my kid? Because they have their own personalities. They have their own likes and dislikes,
That's hard, because that requires us to really do some like introspection and first figure out, what are my values? And we're not really taught how to do that very often. We just go, produce. We're not really taught how to like check in with our values and like figure out what we want to do, right? So that's why we're so prone to comparing and to taking in all the information from everywhere before we even learn how to check our intuition first and our values and look at ourselves first.
Right. Absolutely. And so we've talked about some big things, but coming back to that, like that postpartum kind of plan or like postpartum period and how, looking at that ahead of time, what are those things that you talk about with people that you feel are important to explore before welcoming baby?
Yeah. So I actually came up with an acronym.
Ooh.
Just yesterday. Just yesterday.
Okay.
So my acronym is new parents.
Okay.
And then I put in a question mark at the end and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So N is for like the nest and the new baby. So of course, just like the very real realities of how to prepare your home for baby, how to like learning how to take care of the new baby. E is for expectations. So really tapping into what we're expecting of ourselves, what we think parenting will look like, what like there's so many little expectations that we don't even realize we have. So if we tap into this beforehand, we save ourselves a lot of stress, a lot of anguish when we feel like we're not measuring up or we're not meeting some standard, we're not good enough in air quotes, right? So really tapping into what are my expectations? What do I think chest feeding, breastfeeding, body feeding is going to look like in the first month, the first, so that's E. W is why. So we talked about this. This is like, what's your why? Like, what are your values? Why are you doing this? What do you want out of like the parenting journey? Why? What are your values? P is for people. So people, connection, and support. So finding your village, building your village, finding the people that align with your values, finding your professionals and your personal connections, finding community. And that's why I started Queer Nest Club, because there was a real need for more like virtual community for queer parents and people just on this journey to work through it together and be on it together. I'm also launching, I just announced like a group mastermind that I'm going to be doing. It's going to be like a 6 to 7th month program, again, for a group of people to go through this transition together. It's just such a powerful thing to do in a group, in community with others. Absolutely. A is abundance. So like, again, what's your vision? What can you allow yourself to imagine for yourself? What does your life look like in 5 years, in 10 years? What can you envision for yourself? Even just shorter term than that, I would ask my clients, like, what's one thing you really look forward to doing with your kid, like next summer or like next winter? And then it gets people thinking about, oh, what does that look like? What do I look forward to? R is for resilience, because there's a lot of work that can be done in building resilience, like self-compassion, self-awareness, allowing yourself to feel things and then like pivoting back to a more empowered state, nurturing yourself. There's so many things that go into building resilience, which is very important as a parent, like foster that resilience, right?
Yes, absolutely.
E is for enjoyment, because I strongly believe that, again, not the opposite of the martyrdom complex of like, I have to sacrifice. This is my life's work now, is to be a parent, and I'm not allowed to enjoy things just for me. I call bull. I say, yes, let's think about what you find enjoyable. What is pleasurable to you? What lights you up? What makes you feel good? All of those things are very important. N is for new body. And I wrote new body because I needed to make it work with the acronym, but also it's you're getting to know this kind of, it feels like a new body for a lot of people. It's like, oh, that's not how it used to be, or like this is different. And instead of hating ourselves and hating and like bouncing back to what we were, in air quotes again, because people can't see me right now, but it's just moving forward and leaning into ourselves and asking ourselves hard questions and like discovering what we love and what feels good in our body and how we can love up on our body and just like have a positive relationship with our body moving forward. So that's also very important. T is for time off and gradual return to work. So I think it's really important. I also work very closely with entrepreneurs, right? So it's two totally different things. An entrepreneur is working on a very different timeline than someone who has like a parental leave or a set leave or something through their work or government program. So planning for that, what does that look like, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, if they don't know what that looks like, they can easily fall into a trap of like checking their emails right after birth, or like, there's so many things I've heard that's like, oh, I did that and now I realize that wasn't such a good idea after. So let's talk about that in advance, right?
Absolutely.
And then S is for strategies and tools for success, because again, no one is born with this information, this knowledge of how to parent and how to become this next version of you. So let's like let's have some strategies and some tools to help you connect with yourself, to build your resilience, to figure out who the heck you are, to give yourself some space and time, like all of that yummy stuff. And then the question mark at the end is for their own upbringing. So like, what did their upbringing look like? And you said this so beautifully, like, what do they want to bring into their parenting? So like some traditions that they liked, or some things that felt good that they really want to pass forward, and then things that they don't, right? That we don't want to pass forward, that we want to do differently. And really thinking about that, because we can really bump up against ways that we were parented while we're parenting. And it's like, whoa, I don't know if I like that. I want to like think about this. I want to maybe do it differently. And that's really popular right now, is like intentional parenting, positive parenting, gentle parenting. Why? Because so many of us weren't parented like that. So now we need to learn how to do that, what that looks like, and come up with some like tangible strategies and like learn how to do this.
Absolutely. I love the acronym. I love it. And those are like such great, they're all, like, you kind of touched on everything, like all the pillars that I think are so important. And we don't think about them. I mean, some of these things are hard topics, right? Like you said, bumping up against how we were parented, or like our family's values, and how does that align or not align with who I am now as a grown adult that is now starting a family, right? Like that can look very different and also feel hard to let go of. Well, it's my family traditions, or it's my family values. I should keep them and continue with them. It's okay to let those go.
Yeah. And for the queer community, this is a very common, real pain point, is like, I want to parent differently. I want to do differently for my kids. I want to, I didn't have the visibility. I didn't have the support. And I encounter that a lot in the queer community specifically. So it's like, really, it's a powerful moment, but it can also be quite a painful moment as well.
Absolutely. And those things, again, like we've just said all along, is like seek support. If you are looking for that professional support, right? Like if someone is like looking for someone like you, for example, for that support and that guidance, again, like making sure, like, do they align with my values, right? Or like, do they identify with a group that I identify with? Those things can be so important and so helpful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm, I'm sure you feel this way, but I feel this way too, is like, I'm learning that I'm not going to be for everybody either, right? Like we
Yep.
can't.
Yeah.
We can't, but we were socialized to be for everybody, to be people pleasers, to be everything that everyone else needs from us. And so as professionals too, we're learning to detach from that and to trust that the people who will align with us will come to us and work with us, and we'll be able to connect with them on a really good level. And then if not, like we have peers in the community that may be a better fit, right? So I think that's really powerful too, is just like being our authentically us, trusting in the process, and again, like encouraging our community to look at themselves first, say what is my values, what do I appreciate, and then lining up their dream team in accordance to that.
I can't agree more.
Mhm.
Because I think when let's say, in the ideal world, right, someone is doing that pre-parenthood, right?
Mhm.
And thinking about like, who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my parenting journey to look like? How do I show up authentically as a parent, as a partner, as a family member, all the things?
Yeah.
And that's also going to come through in your professional life,
Yeah.
right? No matter what we're doing in a day, no matter who we're interacting with, we can always choose to show up authentically.
Yeah.
And I want to like also totally acknowledge that sometimes it can feel unsafe to
Mhm.
perhaps reveal parts of ourselves or parts of our identities. And I completely
Mhm.
understand that. And absolutely, it's knowing where that's unsafe, where I can't
Yeah.
divulge certain things.
Yeah.
That's very important. And still doing that in alignment with your values. Because when you walk
Yeah.
away from that interaction, how are you going to feel about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
show up?
There's a difference between like boundaries and
Yeah,
authenticity,
absolutely.
right? And I think that's like we're also kind of collectively learning about boundaries right now and authenticity, and what balancing the two looks like in what spaces, in what capacity, and how can we be authentic and honor our boundaries. And it's the same exact principle as you become a parent. Like you create and enforce your boundaries, discover what those are, and figure out what being an authentic parent looks like to you.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think we need to keep doing to be able to like support these conversations, encourage people to have these conversations about how do look to that postpartum period before giving birth, you know, working on all these like really deep things we talked about, but what do you
Mhm.
think we need to keep doing?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think what you're doing with this podcast is incredible. I think it's like an educating game, and like a kind of a starting from the ground up kind of thing, bringing some education, um, opening the conversations publicly, having them publicly. So, one thing that I've enjoyed doing on my social media is like inviting someone on with me and just sharing their story, right? So learning from each other, learning from our stories and our own experiences, which I touched on in the beginning, like, if one person has a great experience working with a doula, they're more likely to talk about that with their community. So encouraging each other to be open and talk about their experiences and their learnings and their aha moments, and like just changing the rhetoric, changing the paradigm. That's how we do it, is like through talking, through having these conversations. That would be my biggest one. And it's also like tricky, right? It's I wasn't educated as a teacher, so it's not something that I'm like super familiar with, like creating a lesson plan and like,
Right.
and this in this digital era of social media and content creation, it's like, what the hell am I even doing?
Right.
But coming from that place, right? Like coming from this place of how can I help raise the awareness of what we need and what we believe in and what we care about, and these conversations and these learnings that we have to have. And I think That's my answer.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And this could maybe be too broad of a question or too hard of a question, but like, what is something that you find is like really important to share with someone about transitioning into that parent role? Like, what would you want to
Mm-hmm.
impart on someone? If you could only impart like something, one thing, what would
Yeah.
it be?
Yeah, it's tough because I really shy away from just giving like advice.
Right. Yes.
But
Yes.
if I could say one thing is like the power of shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundant one is like insanely powerful. So what I mean by that, as it looks like in the new parenthood journey, is like instead of looking at it and doing the least or thinking the least or paying the least or like doing the least, let's flip it and let's start thinking and talking about how we can have the most, how we can be the most supported, most empowered versions of ourselves. How can we be the most educated versions of ourselves? How can we be the best parent versions of ourselves? These questions of like in an abundant state of like, I do deserve more. I can have more. I I am worthy of more. Like this kind of thing. I think it's pretty radical still.
It is, which is a little sad, right? Just like in the sense of why, yes, why can't we all believe this to be true?
Hmm.
Right? That again,
Hmm.
it's not necessarily that you can have it all at one time,
Hmm.
because I don't think that's possible. Like you said, we can't do it all at once because
No.
time and capacity is finite. But we can definitely each stage of the journey tap into the things that we love and we're
Hmm.
passionate about and have that time away from our kids, have that
Hmm.
still keep that part of us
Yeah.
that again allows us to connect with our kids and our family on that authentic level because we're still connected to ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
um
and I know that the first thing people are gonna say is like, well, that's nice, but I can't afford it. Right. And so I understand that there's a very real financial implication, but that's not the end of the conversation. Right. There's always like a little further we can go
yeah,
in there. Right. Like what are we, how are we limiting ourselves by just closing off? Like, and I've had to learn this the hard way as well myself. I was raised in a very like scarcity, lack, conserving, stay small, stay all of that. And so in learning like, okay, how do I become more abundant without like just splurging my money or like in healing these money mindsets that I've been given. And there is a lot that can be done there, a lot of mindset work, a lot of like just asking tough questions, like why not, right? Like why am I where is this limiting belief coming from, and do I actually believe it, or was it like passed down to me from somewhere, or is it something that like society is saying? So that's a whole like another conversation in itself, and that's why that's like a main pillar of my business and my brand. It's like it's abundance.
and I think that can still translate into how we're living our life in terms of like happiness or just doing things that we love to do, like letting go of that badge of honor, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
of not asking for help, or
Mm-hmm.
like that abundance mindset can translate to things outside of money too, of like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going to have an abundance of support instead of being a martyr and thinking I have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Naomi, thank you so much. Like this was an amazing conversation and got me like
Aw.
really excited and fired up because
Aw.
I just love talking
Thank
about
you.
this stuff. I think it's so
Yeah.
important. And
Yeah, me
so
too.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate your authenticity. So
Thank you.
tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine. This
Oh,
podcast is amazing. I love what you're
thank you.
doing, and I'm just so grateful that you invited me on. Honestly, this was really fun. Really, I love talking about this too. I could talk about it all day, every
Yeah,
day. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Where can people find me? I'm on Instagram at my queer nest. That's my main platform right now. My website is queernest.co. No M, it's not .com, it's .co.
Yeah.
And on there you can book like a call to like get on a call with me and like talk about some of these things, start the conversation, right? And then of course I have like packages and all that, but if someone just wants to start the conversation, that's the best way.
Best way to start. And also for anyone listening, definitely to check out your Instagram, because you have like such great videos and
thank you so much.
Awesome, like even just like little tutorials and stuff that are so helpful, right? Of like, how do you change a diaper? I don't know, I keep coming back to diaper, but you know, like if you've never done it, you got to learn it somewhere, right?
Yeah, I shared a milk. I did a milk packing video, and I was surprised how many people were like, oh, I never thought of the flange funnel tip. I was like, there you go, right?
Amazing.
Like little thing, little wins.
Yes, those little things are so important, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's been a blast.
I love talking about planning for the postpartum period and parenthood because it often gets missed in family planning discussions. Naomi has some great strategies for transitioning to parenthood, and I love talking about normalizing, asking for help, building our support system, and being authentic. Leave a comment and let us know the one thing you encourage people to consider about the postpartum period. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please share this podcast with any of your friends or family members who may benefit from it. If you feel you are experiencing any of the symptoms or issues that we discussed today, please reach out to any one of your supports. You can also go to perinatalwellbeing.ca for more information, blog posts, and podcast episodes. Check out our new episode every Wednesday.